It's a really confusing term. I mean, most of us know the word actual and most of us know the word malice. So if you put the two together, there's no real reason to suspect that it means anything different than it actually does. But as it turns out, it does mean something different. Well, hi lovely people and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm gonna try and keep it short because I am not reacting to any videos. In this video, I'm just going to explain something, and knowing myself, it's still gonna be way longer than it has to, but I'm gonna try to keep it short. So the term that I want to get into with you today is the term actual malice. Now, if you've been hanging around the trial for the past 2 months, you might have heard the term before, or maybe if you're a lawyer, or maybe if you're just for some reason really interested in legal terms, which is completely fine. You might have heard the term actual malice a lot during the trial, and you might have especially heard it during the verdict, because actual malice was a really important part of that verdict. But unfortunately, it does seem like not everyone on social media, and unfortunately also on the media, actually understands what the term means. Now, full disclosure, I had no idea what it meant until I heard it in the context of this trial. So I'm going to share with you some knowledge that I simply did not have 2 months ago. It's going to be fun. So honestly, I'm not going to sit here and suggest that these people are in some way unintelligent or careless or whatever, because it's just a really confusing term. I mean, most of us know the word actual and most of us know the word malice. So if you put the two together, there's no real reason to suspect that it means anything different than it actually does. But as it turns out, it does mean something different. So first of all, I wanted to point your attention at the jury verdict form, which I have over here. And you'll see right here at the bottom, I'll zoom in a little for you, the question 1B. If you answered yes to each subpart of question 1A, answer the following question. Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice? Now, if you've been following along during the trial, and especially during the verdict, you might remember that the jury actually found that Heard acted with actual malice for all 3 of the statements that Depp sued her over. And the jury also found that Mr. Waldman, acting as Mr. Depp's agent, also acted with actual malice in the 2nd statement from her counterclaim. But what actually is actual malice? Now, the best way to do this is not to give you my own interpretation of it, but to actually show the jury instructions that the jury in this case read and was supposed to follow to the letter. So over here we have part of the jury instructions that were not only given to the jury on paper, but that were also read out loud. Very well, actually, by Judge Ascarati. I am frankly amazed how she manages to read out so much so quickly without stumbling on any of her words. That is a superpower. But anyway, this is the actual definition of actual malice that the jury was supposed to use in coming to their verdict. So let's go through it, shall we? It says at the top, actual malice. Both parties have the burden of proving actual malice by clear and convincing evidence. Now, as an aside, clear and convincing evidence also has a jury instruction. I believe it's the one above this. And it basically says that the evidence that has been presented to you was, well, convincing enough that it's created a firm belief, a firm conviction in your mind that the one with the burden of proof actually managed to prove it. So, to continue. To meet this burden, each party must prove by clear and convincing evidence that each statement was made or published, 1, with knowledge that the statement was false, or 2, so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth, that is, with a high degree of awareness that the statement was probably false. Actual malice is a subjective analysis that looks to the state of mind of the person who made the statement. If the person who made the statement believed it was substantially accurate at the time of its publication, then it does not give rise to liability for defamation. So what this means is that if someone actually believes something to be true, or at least substantially accurate, as it says here, then it's not defamation. It's as simple as that. So by finding liability in Amber Heard for the statements that she made in her op-ed, the jury basically told her that at the time she published those statements, she did not believe they were substantially accurate. Now, in this particular case, it was actually not that hard for him to come to actual malice, because the person that they were investigating for actual malice was the person who, of all people, should have knowledge of whether it was true or false. And that's why Waldman, and in essence also the Sun and NGN and Dan Wootton in the UK trial, but in this case specifically Adam Waldman, can't be found liable for defamation that easily because they rely on someone else's knowledge. But if this is about her allegations, then she, of all people, should know if it's true or not because she was there. And they didn't go the route of claiming some kind of mental state that caused her to believe things that weren't true. They could have tried, but I don't really think that would have been wildly successful. But it's at least possible that someone believes these kinds of things even though they didn't happen. So in essence, what it means is that the jury was convinced, and this is not balance of probabilities, this is not preponderance of the evidence, this is clear and convincing evidence. That's a higher burden than preponderance of the evidence. The jury had a firm conviction that Johnny Depp, in this case, had clearly and convincingly proved that Amber Heard did not believe these statements to be true. And that's even taking into account her case in chief. It's even taking into account her testimony. Obviously, they're not supposed to only go off of his testimony and his evidence. No, they're looking at the whole case. And then they're weighing the evidence. And then they still came to the conclusion that Amber was lying. That's the clearest way I can cut it. Now, the reason that this is probably so confusing for a lot of people in the media and a lot of people on social media who just read the words actual and malice and had an idea of what it meant, which is, again, totally reasonable. If you know the word actual, you know the word malice, you put them together, you have an idea of what it means, and you're not going to look up the meaning of every single word that you see. You're not going to randomly assume that knowledge suddenly means something different in this context, right? So that is the definition of actual malice in this case, and that is what they found, as I just explained. Now, it's important to note that the jury was expressly instructed not only on the definition of actual malice, but also on what malice is not, which is the next jury instruction, which I will show you right now. All right, here we go, and I'll blow this up. So this is a jury instruction right below the one we previously saw, and it says actual malice is not ill will, hatred, or bias. The term actual malice should not be confused with the more common meanings of the word malice, such as ill will or hatred. Actual malice is not established merely because an author was motivated by ill will, prejudice, hostility, hatred, contempt, or even a desire to injure another. So whenever you hear anyone in the media say that the jury found that Amber Heard acted with the intent to injure, you can point them to the jury instructions, which are, by the way, freely available online, and you can actually tell them that they are wrong. And if you do so, please do so respectfully. Don't just shit all over them like, you're an idiot, you don't even get the term of actual malice right, and you're spreading lies and disinformation. Don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, as I said, it's so completely human and understandable why anyone would have an incomplete understanding of the term actual malice. It's perfectly possible to watch the majority of the case and somehow still miss that definition. If you're not there for the reading of the jury instructions, which I completely understand because it is boring as heck if you're not into that kind of stuff. I thought it was really fascinating, but that's just me. Then I really can't fault anyone for not knowing the definition. So if you do, please do so respectfully. Please say, hey, I believe you might have accidentally misunderstood the meaning of the term malice in the jury verdict. Is it all right if I point you towards the jury instructions where this is explained? And then you show them. So It is not proven by the jury that Miss Heard acted with the intent to cause harm. That is not what the verdict says. We don't have any knowledge of what the jury found in that respect. We only know that they punished her with $5 million, which is capped to $350. But the jury punished her with $5 million. That's all we know, really. We only know that they found that she acted with actual malice by clear and convincing evidence, which again is a higher burden than for the rest of those questions on the jury verdict. We have absolutely zero proof of what the jury thought about her intentions to cause any harm whatsoever. Now, it can be implied that if you know that these allegations are false, and you would probably know because you were there, and if you then still go on the stand and perpetuate these allegations, then what one might infer that you're probably intending to cause harm. But that's not what the jury verdict was about whatsoever. It's just an inference. We have no proof. It's likely that that's what the jury thought, but we have no proof. There's nothing on paper saying that whatsoever. Now, I only feel comfortable saying that the jury found that Amber Heard was lying because she is the one who should know whether or not this is true because she was there. If this had been a third party that wasn't there at that moment, I would not feel as comfortable saying that they were lying. Because if you weren't there, you have no personal knowledge of whether or not it's true or false. And you might actually just be wrong. I mean, if a friend of you tells you, hey, I went shopping yesterday, and it turns out they went shopping the day before yesterday, and you tell someone else, yeah, that friend of mine went shopping yesterday, are you lying? I don't think you're lying in that case, right? However, if the person in question, that friend of yours, says, I went shopping yesterday, and it turns out they went shopping the day before, then you could argue they were lying if they were not making a mistake. Because personally, I don't consider it lying if you're just mistaken. If I tell someone I went shopping yesterday and I'm just confused and it was the day before yesterday, I would be really, really pissed if someone said that I lied. Because for me personally, and I know that that doesn't go for everyone, but for me personally, the word lying implies the intention to tell an untruth. And if you're just confused, it's not that. So technically, in the case of Amber Heard, we could still say that there's a possibility that she was just confused. But considering the nature of the allegations, I think it's really, 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 really unlikely that she was just confused. I might get the day wrong when I went shopping, but I don't get up to 14 incidents of domestic violence and sexual assault just confused. It's no. So if she's not confused, then she's going up there telling those untruths on purpose, which would make it lying. So that's why I feel comfortable saying that the jury found that she lied, looking at the definition of actual malice and the fact that she was there so that she should have known whether or not it was true or false, and that it's highly unlikely that she was just misremembering because, well, I tend to think it's really unlikely that people misremember being assaulted like that for years out of confusion. And they also did not plead any kind of mental illness or something that will cause her to have a twisted sense of reality. And honestly, I don't think they should have, because first of all, she doesn't come across like the kind of person that would have false memories like that. And I'm kind of happy that they didn't go with that defense, because I don't think they would have had a very strong case in that case. It's really hard to prove something like that, to prove that someone actually faithfully believed that things like that happened, even though they didn't. Just good luck trying to prove that. So when you put all these things together, it basically means that she knew that it was false and that she went and lied anyway, and that is what the jury found based on the definition of actual malice. Now, I hope that you found this video informative. If you want me to explain any other terms, either from this trial or anything else, anything maybe in psychology or birding or music or I don't know, if there's anything you want me to explain, just drop it down below. If I know anything about it, I'll explain it. If I don't, I'll dig into it and I'll explain it. If I'm interested enough. I do have some limits. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope that your day is a little bit brighter now that you are a little bit wiser, unless you already knew the definition of actual malice, in which case this video is probably entirely useless to you, in which case I'm only more thankful that you stuck it out to the end. I hope to see you again in another video, and until then, take care and hang in there. See ya!